last week we talked about Big Ben and whether or not he could support three wide receivers. And obviously there's a lot of change going on in Pittsburgh. There's another team with a similar layout as far as the wide receiving talent. Mm-hmm. And that team is the Cincinnati Bengals. So
Yep.
Give us your take. Give us your view on the Cincinnati Bengals.
I'm a big fan. JeMar Chase. Like huge fan. Ever since I watched him during his last season at LSU, that championship run with Burrow. Just watching because it's crazy because I actually went into watching LSU highlights to watch Burrow to kind of see what kind of quarterback he's been, and I felt like every highlight I was watching actually was more of a JeMar Chase highlight. And literally from that point on, I was like, okay, this guy right here is somebody I have to definitely keep my eye on. And obviously he's kind of become what he's become. But anyways, they also have T. Higgins, which I'm also very high on.
Yep.
I would say I'm higher than most, but I would say I'm higher than most, but from the news that I've been seeing lately, it's almost like other people are starting to talk him up a little bit. And, sometimes they kind of go like, dang, that was my guy.
You were very high on him. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they also got Tyler Boyd, which I like talent-wise. Just not as high on him as maybe you are, or really the fantasy community or consensus. So those are the three weapons they have. Now I do want to mention they have other weapons, but really one other weapon I think that matters. But, maybe a couple other they have. Auden Tate, who is a player I'm actually a fan of. He has, a wide catch radius, big body player. Been with them for about 3-4 years now. Kind of worked his way up. Worked his way up a little bit. Got a fair amount of playing time last year, and he did well. He did really well. He doesn't have draft capital or the investment in him, so they're not going to play him over those top three. Then they still have the tight ends. They have C.J. Azuma, who was actually hurt last year, and then they have Drew Sample, who was a rookie last year. I think he was a second-round pick, maybe a third round, but I really believe it was a second-round pick. I wasn't really high on him, but
we saw Drew Sample last year. You don't even have to. Let's.
Yeah. So I wasn't high on him, but so that was cool. But so their three main targets are, JeMar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd in that order for me. So because me personally, I feel like Boyd is gonna kind of lose a little bit of value this year because I feel like Chase is gonna take that possession role from him. I feel like Higgins is still going to be what he is and maybe even get better. And, there's only one football that can go around. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Okay, so you feel like Burrow cannot support all three of these wide receivers. You feel like somebody's going to take a hit.
I do not think he can. I do not. Okay. Now I say this always in the beginning of the season, but, injuries happen.
Yeah.
So it might work its way out, but from day one, I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let me start off with JeMar Chase. I almost don't want to say this because it's being recorded, and the last thing I want is this to be replayed in 2022 and they say, this is the dude that said he didn't like JeMar Chase. So let me get this correct. Okay?
Exactly, man. What are you talking about, man?
Yeah. It's not that I don't like JeMar Chase. I have a different view from my film study of watching JeMar Chase.
Okay.
I saw him running an offense that literally just where he was just basically running wide open. He was oftentimes in single coverage against smaller DBs. Athleticism, yes, off the chart. Catch radius, off the chart. Hands, very good. I don't necessarily know that they're elite. I didn't see anything that necessarily made it elite. So for me, it's very tough to say that he's just going to come into the league and dominate. Is he going to come in and do very well? I can see that. Is he going to come in and have a Justin Jefferson type year? I think that's tough. And I think that's where he's being drafted now, with the thought that he's going to come in and produce numbers like Justin Jefferson did. And Justin Jefferson started off very slowly, like most rookies did last year in a COVID. So for Justin Jefferson to produce the numbers that he did, I mean, it's just absolutely mind-boggling.
Now, don't forget, Jefferson was Chase's teammate.
I know.
At LSU, and Chase was the number one receiver over Jefferson.
I
So when you
understand. I understand,
compare
but
those two direct players, some I don't know,
so
maybe.
things like that. So things like that for me are very tough to assess on the next level because you being the number one receiver in that offense to me does not necessarily mean that your game is going to translate at a higher level than the guy who's the number two receiving option in that offense. From a standpoint, again, you're playing in college. Many of these players are just schemed open. They're put in excellent positions to succeed. And I'm not taking anything away from Chase. He did exactly what he
Okay.
was supposed to do. He dominated that competition. He took advantage of being, having 5 to 10 yards of separation. And part of that is him. Okay. Part of that is his speed. Part of that is, to me, his route
Right.
running was good, but I didn't think it was like excellent. I think it was, Devontae
I
Smith
mean,
type. But
no,
so,
it wasn't that at all.
okay. Yeah. And I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just, I just didn't think it was elite. So again, how well he's going to translate to the NFL, I think he's going to do great. But is he going to do Justin Jefferson type great? Is he going to pay off
Right.
his potential fourth round ADP? That to me is hard to stomach. And I think if you want him, that's where you got to get him. Occasionally we see him go in the fifth, but that's tough to me. So I do think that he takes over the AJ Green role, and we saw AJ Green amass over 100 targets. I do fully expect him to do more with those targets, have a higher per target fantasy point production than AJ Green did last year. I don't think it's hard for anyone to really
I
do
mean,
that
AJ Green really didn't produce much. I mean, he was getting a lot of targets,
at all.
but as
He was
far as
getting a lot of
production,
targets.
he really wasn't doing much of
Yeah,
nothing.
so I basically expect him to take that role. I expect Higgins to pretty much play the same role he played, and I expect Boyd to play the slot. And for me, there's a couple reasons why I'm high on Boyd. The one is the obvious, which is just his ADP. You can get him in the 8th round. It doesn't cost you anything.
Right.
Two is he is elite in his own right. When it comes to slot
Okay.
receivers, go and look at the numbers. Over the last 3 to 4 years, he is elite. He is absolutely elite. His athleticism, his size, his route running, what he can do from the slot to me is something that I doubt will just fade away heading into the 2021 season. The third aspect
Right.
of this is the fact that Joe Burrow, which we haven't really touched on, is coming off a very significant ACL injury. He is still wearing the
Right.
brace. They didn't even want running
Right.
backs lining up in the backfield because they didn't want anybody coming close to that brace. So the idea that this
Right.
Joe Burrow is just going to be, 5, 7 step dropbacks or rolling out and bootleg, he may get to that point, but I think they're going to be very cautious. And I think we need to be cautious.
No,
This
I
may be
agree.
a
I
situation
agree.
where Joe Mixon may be the value out of all of these guys. But I see Boyd in this, during this season being a safety blanket and someone who Joe Burrow would be looking to very fast and very often, trying to get the ball out as quick as he can to try and protect that knee. Because it's going to take him a while. It takes a player a while to get used to that ACL. I think quarterbacks are just different. There's just a certain nuance, when it comes to pocket presence, when it comes to feeling comfortable with your dropbacks, being under center, because people are just running in and around your leg. Your own linemen are running in and around your leg. And I think it takes a certain amount of comfort to get used to that. So I doubt that he's just going to want to be spending a large amount of time, in the pocket. The last reason I
And they
think
really don't even have the greatest offensive line either. Just
exactly, and that's
that's definitely a risk.
that was my next point. Their offensive line. Like, how much time is he really going to have to throw? I do think their offensive line improves. We are big on offensive line continuity. So an offensive line can have a poor grade 1 year, but if they return the same starters, especially if they're young, I think there's a decent chance that we see a significant step up. Yeah, so because more oftentimes than not, there's some draft capital there. So it just takes, sometimes it takes offensive lines a little bit of time to gel. It takes players a little bit of time to mature. So they should get better, but again, they're not going to be, they'll still be well below average, I believe.
Right.
My last point is, I think, is something that is just going to be related to who they match up against. JeMar Chase is going to see a team's number one cornerback. Okay. Unless the Patriots, maybe then it is, double bracket in the wide receiver 2 season, number one quarter. But for the most part, he's going to see their number one quarterback.
Right.
Going through
tough competition.
Exactly. And they're in a tough division. Okay, they play the Browns. They got some nasty DBs. They play the Steelers. Steelers DBs are hurting, but they still have Joe Hayden back there, and they still have who's the
Right.
other guy?
They let go, or they haven't re-signed Steven Nelson, who I'm a big
And I don't
fan
think
of.
they're bringing him back. I think they're very high on. I'm blanking on his name right now, but I think they're high on the second year DB. But so, but either way, Joe Hayden will likely be covering JeMar Chase. Then they also play the Broncos, and the Baltimore Ravens, and we already know what their defensive backfield looks like. But I mean, you can go kind of through that season. So I think he's going to be seeing the opposing team's number one DB. I don't think Justin Jefferson was seeing the opposing team's number one defensive back or number one cornerback last year. I think Adam Thielen was seeing that, which almost makes Adam Thielen the bias.
I think it varied. I think it varied through the season. Actually, I think that's because he started to become a thing.
Yeah, towards the end of the season. So for me, I think the cornerback schedule for Tyler Boyd. When we look at the slot corners that he's going to be coming up against, I think it's a very favorable schedule. So for me, I'm buying. And the production, just year in and year out, I think Tyler Boyd is an excellent buy at his 8th round ADP.
I said, God, give me a warning. Please take me for the morning, so I leave more disappointments than I ever will appointments. Give a